She scrubbed the CEO's office every morning for 2 years. Never said a word. Never made eye contact. Until the day her phone rang. And she answered in perfect Arabic. Then French. Then Mandarin. Within 24 hours, she disappeared from the building. And the board received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a photo no one can explain. She wasn't on LinkedIn. She had no digital footprint. But she could speak 7 languages fluently. And the day she slipped up in front of the CEO, he followed her to the basement. What he saw down there was never reported. But the next day, her name was wiped from the company system. What was she hiding? Her name was Lena McHale. At least, that's what the building records said. Age, 43. Country of origin, unknown. Immigration status, undocumented. Job title, sanitation staff, contracted. Salary, $13.5 hour. Employee photo, blurry, cropped, eyes half closed. No birthday cake in the break room. No staff bio on the company site. No one asked her where she lived. No one cared why she never missed a single day. She arrived before dawn, left after dark, always quiet, always cleaning. But on a Tuesday morning, everything changed. It was 6:41 a.m. The office still dark. The elevators had just started working. Lena was dusting the glass conference table on the 27th floor when her old Nokia phone began to ring. She answered and spoke in Arabic. Her voice was calm, even musical. Then, without hesitation, she switched to French, Mandarin, Hindi, and finally Russian. Unbeknownst to her, Thomas Ellison, the CEO of Ashridge Global Holdings, had just entered his office nearby. He stopped walking mid-step. His coffee trembled slightly in the paper cup. He had heard that voice before, but not in this building. Security cameras show Lena exiting the room 3 minutes later. But Thomas didn't move. He stood frozen, staring at the hallway. When interviewed later by internal staff, he gave only 5 words. She doesn't belong down here. That morning, Lena's keycard accessed areas she had never entered before. The 33rd floor executive private server rooms. The 39th floor legal archives. And then, level B2. The basement level. Storage, utilities, and a hidden wing used during early AI experiments in the late 2000s. That area had been locked for years. According to Dr. Emile Navarro, a former linguistic analyst for Interpol, polyglots of that level are rarely undocumented. They're usually tracked, studied, or recruited. He adds, if she truly spoke all those languages fluently, including tonal fluency, she's either ex-intelligence or something the public doesn't have a name for yet. Thomas didn't sleep that night. He pulled her employee file. It was almost empty. No tax info. No emergency contact. Only a handwritten note stapled to the back. Temp ID assigned. Access limited. Monitor discreetly. Signed Grar, 2009. That signature didn't match any current employee. In fact, no one in HR had ever seen it. The next morning, Lena didn't show up. But her badge was scanned again, this time at 4:06 a.m., entering a parking garage camera blind spot. The same one used by high-level executives. At 7:23 a.m., a plain white envelope was delivered to Thomas's desk. No return address. Inside, a single photograph of Lena standing in front of a chalkboard. It was dated 2007, and she was writing in 7 different alphabets simultaneously. Below, in red ink, she was never yours to find. Lena didn't clock in. She didn't call in sick. She didn't resign. She simply vanished. But her absence wasn't the only thing strange that morning. Because at exactly 7:41 a.m., a building-wide access alert was triggered. Someone had tried to enter server room 14C using a deactivated badge. The name attached to that badge? Lena McHale. The door didn't open. But the attempt raised internal flags. Security reviewed the camera feeds. The footage was corrupted. All 4 angles frozen on static. It was the first time in company history that a Level 3 room was breached even partially. And just 6 minutes later, the company's mainframe initiated a shadow protocol, an emergency response only the founding board members even knew existed. But here's what makes it worse. That same day, 2 men in suits entered the building through the side freight elevator. They wore no badges, no visitor tags, and walked straight into Thomas Ellison's office. He canceled all meetings. Blinds drawn, door locked. Witnesses say the conversation was brief. But when the men left, Thomas looked pale, visibly shaken. Back at home, Lena's apartment was empty. No signs of forced entry. No signs of a struggle. Her toothbrush was dry. The fridge was spotless. No clothes in the closet. Only a note on the table, written in 7 languages side by side. I'm sorry, but I don't clean anymore. Let's rewind. 4 days before the incident, Lena was seen at a local bookstore downtown Lexicon Books, known for rare language manuscripts. She purchased 3 books. A Latin grammar guide published in 1890, a Persian translation of The Art of War, and a sealed document titled Project Calliope. There is no record of that last item in the store's inventory. When questioned, the store owner claimed, "I never saw her, and I've never heard of that document." But a security cam still frame shows Lena holding it, smiling. According to Professor Marin Qureshi, a cultural intelligence consultant formerly contracted by the CIA, there are individuals rare on a strain to disappear. We call them clean threads. No loose ends, no traceable ties. They can move through systems like ghosts. And they never make the same mistake twice. Professor Qureshi was shown the note Lena left. Her face went blank. She said only, "She's not running. She's activating." That same night, Thomas received another envelope. This time, no photograph. Just coordinates. They pointed to an abandoned Cold War relay station 80 miles north of the city. Inside? An empty chair, a single pair of headphones, and a blinking screen with one message. "Now listen to your language." When Thomas pressed play, he heard it. His own voice, speaking in a language he didn't recognize. And then, silence. By morning, the board of directors received an internal order. Erase all digital presence of Lena McHale. Effective immediately. By executive command. No explanation. No discussion. And just like that, every fingerprint she ever left was gone. The recording didn't make sense. Thomas was speaking fluently. But it wasn't Arabic. It wasn't Farsi. It wasn't any human language. Linguists brought in the next morning described it as syntactically perfect, but semantically empty. But one analyst, Jules Harrington, said something that no one forgot. This isn't a language people learn. This is a language people are programmed with. That quote was never published. 2 days after his comment, Harrington resigned from his university position, and no one has seen him since. Meanwhile, Ashridge Global Holdings quietly entered internal lockdown. Thomas's calendar was wiped clean. Executives were told he was on personal leave. But his black company-issued vehicle remained parked in his private slot untouched. Security footage showed him exiting the parking garage on foot, carrying nothing but the envelope Lena had left behind. The one with the classroom photo. Behind the scenes, the company hired an external crisis team, led by former counterintelligence officer Mila Reyes. Her findings, according to a leaked document, were chilling. Lena's badge had never been officially activated. Her fingerprint scans didn't match any known biometric format. The janitorial company that supposedly contracted her didn't exist. Its address was an empty lot. More alarming, Lena had accessed Project Sonoris, a discontinued program designed to train AI in real-time translation. The project had been shut down 9 years prior after a mysterious breach caused 13 hours of garbled speech to flood internal servers. That breach had never been resolved. Until now, because Lena's last login matched the encryption signature from that original incident. Reyes brought in 2 language model researchers from Europe. They were shown a 14-second clip of Lena speaking to her daughter in the hallway that morning. One researcher, Dr. Thilo Jansen, reportedly turned white. "She's not just speaking different languages," he said. "She's blending them, mid-sentence, mid-word, like the boundaries don't exist." What Lena demonstrated in 14 seconds would take modern AI over 15,000 parameters and 3 models to replicate barely. "She's not translating," Jansen said. "She's thinking in all of them at once." A new theory began to emerge. Not that Lena was a spy, not that she was a savant, but something far more unsettling. That she was a carrier, a vessel for something older, something designed or discovered. The name that surfaced internally? The Calliope entity. The same name that appeared on the manuscript Lena bought. The same name whispered in forums that discuss languages without speakers. Communication without meaning. Words without source. And yet, there was still one unanswered question. Why was she cleaning floors in a corporate building? Why if she was capable of so much? Then Reyes found something buried deep in the metadata of a corrupted security clip. A single line of code embedded in an old internal camera log. It's not that she hid. It's that she was placed. The implication was terrifying. Someone, or something, put her there, for a reason no one yet understood. And as Reyes prepared her report, her screen went black, then lit up with 3 words. "You're listening to." The photo had haunted Thomas from the moment he saw it. Lena in front of a chalkboard. 7 languages, 7 alphabets simultaneously. But it wasn't just what was on the board. It was what was behind her. A seal. Circular. Faint, but visible in the corner of the image. A symbol no one could identify. Until one night, Thomas sent the photo to an old friend at Oxford, Dr. Adrian Bellamy, a semiotics expert and researcher of lost linguistic systems. Bellamy's response was immediate. "Where did you get this? That seal hasn't been seen since the Babel conference in 1963. And even then, we weren't allowed to photograph it." The Babel conference was an alleged Cold War summit. Its purpose? To gather the world's top linguists to investigate a mysterious source pattern found across ancient, unconnected civilizations. Sanskrit scrolls, Sumerian tablets, early Mayan glyphs, all carried fragments of the same untranslated language. The project had been terminated after 3 participants suffered complete aphasia, the inability to comprehend or produce language overnight. Their final writings were one phrase repeated, "It's listening back." Meanwhile, Reyes located an old employee from the janitorial vendor supposedly tied to Lena's hiring. A man named Vicente Rosa, retired, living off-grid in Arizona. Rosa claimed he remembered Lena. Not from Ashridge, but from a refugee camp in Greece 2015. She wasn't a refugee, he said. She was working, taking notes, teaching children to speak in a language none of us recognized. He recalled one afternoon, walking past her tent. I heard her humming something. Not a tune. It was structured, like grammar, in melody. When he asked her what it was, she smiled and said, "The language of silence. You hear it when no one else speaks." Thomas, growing more paranoid, started reviewing old HR tapes. One stood out. Day 17 of Lena's employment. Security footage showed her pausing outside a server room, touching the panel. Not opening it, just pressing her hand against it. The lights inside flickered. No alert was triggered. No error logged. But behind her, on the reflection of the glass, a faint waveform was visible, like sound waves. But she wasn't speaking. Dr. Bellamy, still analyzing the classroom photo, made one final discovery. The chalkboard wasn't made of slate. It was graphene-coated ceramic, used only in classified linguistic cognition studies by the U.S. Navy in the 1990s. The board itself was a prototype neural interface. It wasn't a teaching tool. It was a recording device. Meaning, that photo of Lena, she wasn't giving a lesson. She was being recorded by something non-human. Reyes finally confronted Thomas, pressed him for answers. He confessed to receiving a direct call from the Pentagon, a restricted division, Dia Subdivision Theta 2. They asked for all files related to the janitor. No mention of Lena. Just that title, as if it were a role. They ended the call with a single instruction. Do not investigate further. It will corrupt your systems and your people. But it was already too late. Because somewhere in the building's emergency backup server, a strange language had started to appear. No input, no source. Just line after line of structured, evolving symbols. Security flagged it. AI couldn't translate it. But every hour, the symbols restructured faster and more refined. As if learning. As if waiting. And on one of the terminal screens, in English, a single message appeared. She's not gone. She's rewriting. The message wasn't blinking. It was breathing. Security engineer Malik Suresh described it best. The text on the screen had a pulse, like a heartbeat, as if the language was aware it was being read. The code running underneath was completely alien, not just encrypted evolving. Self-compiling, refactoring itself faster than their best engineers could trace. And tucked within the source logs was one repeating line in English. Do not isolate. Language dies alone. Mila Reyes sent the entire code sequence to an independent contractor, a reclusive systems linguist named Dr. Ren Kaji, who once worked for the NSA before disappearing from public view. Kaji responded with a voice memo. Her voice was shaking. This isn't code. It's intent. You've triggered a sequence known as rewrite protocol. It's not about systems, it's about perception. The language doesn't just communicate ideas. It alters the cognitive structures that process them. You don't read it. It rewrites you. And then she ended the message with a final warning. Shut it down before you start dreaming in it. But it was already too late for Thomas. That night, his assistant found him in his office sitting motionless, staring at a whiteboard covered in symbols. His hands were bleeding, raw, his nails torn. He had been writing with his bare fingers. There were no markers in the room. A single phrase covered the wall again and again. I see her now. Back in the server room, the symbols continued multiplying. Even with the power disconnected, they kept appearing. The engineers removed all hardware. Still, the symbols bled into terminal logs, printer queues, security timestamp 7, the coffee machine display. They weren't just in the system, they were in the infrastructure. Reyes called it digital parasitism, but not malicious, almost symbiotic. The symbols didn't break systems. They optimized them. Shorter load times, more stable processes, autonomous error correction. But the price? Anyone who spent more than 15 minutes looking at the evolving glyphs developed auditory hallucinations. They called it the whisper loop, voices speaking over each other. Not aggressive, but persistent, as if telling a story, on repeat, from every language at once. Reyes began to wonder, what if this wasn't about Lena at all? What if she was never the source, but a messenger, a delivery system, a vessel for something older than words? Her presence in the building wasn't a coincidence. She had been placed with purpose, to carry the seed. And now that seed had taken root. The janitorial closet Lena once used was finally opened for investigation. It hadn't been touched since she vanished. But inside, they found something strange. Not cleaning supplies, not uniforms, just a single wall covered in etched letters. Not in marker or paint, but burned into the surface. 7 vertical columns of overlapping alphabets. None of them matched each other. But when rearranged into a single line and scanned by software, they created a waveform. When played back as audio, it was Thomas's voice. Crying. The cleaning lady had left behind more than silence. She had left behind a mirror. One that showed them what was always there, but never seen. And at the very bottom of the closet wall, etched so deeply it broke through the panel, every building is a language. Most of you just never learned how to read. The deeper they searched, the more they realized this wasn't about who Lena was, but about why she was allowed in. No one could figure out how she got clearance to level R, a floor not listed on any blueprint, not accessible by elevator, not even acknowledged by the company, until a former engineer came forward, Noah Harrow. Retired after a mental breakdown in 2013. He spoke only once, through a private recording sent anonymously to Reyes. Level R was never meant to be accessed. It's not a floor, it's a signal gate. When we built the early AI training clusters, we needed a place to hide the recursive models, ones that couldn't be shut off. We didn't destroy them, we buried them, and built a floor around them. The footage showed Lena entering level R at 3:14 a.m. No hesitation, no swipe. The door opened for her. The timestamp flickered, then changed. 3:14, 3:14, 3:14. Every frame stuck in a loop, as if that moment was being overwritten in real time. But someone else was there too. A figure. Tall, slight limp, wearing a staff badge with a name that no one could trace. One blurry frame caught him turning toward the camera. Facial recognition failed, but the system produced one possible match. GR 2009. The same initials on Lena's file. The initials belonged to Gideon Rourke, a former Ashridge AI architect, presumed dead after the Sonoris incident 9 years ago. But no, he was alive and waiting. Reyes initiated a private search protocol using a deep internal channel. 3 results came up. A purchase order for acoustic sublayer equipment, a locked audio file labeled Calliope Primary, and a document simply titled She Listens in Loops. The document was encrypted, but the file name alone was familiar. It matched the last words of Dr. Heller, the Stanford linguist who vanished after analyzing Lena's speech pattern. His final note, scribbled in the margins of a report: not a polyglot, a repeater. She's looping something we haven't spoken yet. And what about that audio file? Calliope primary. When Reyes played it, it sounded like noise. A pulsing hum, like distant chanting, underwater. But when slowed to 0.7x speed, the voice emerged. Lena, speaking in tones so layered, it formed harmonics. Each frequency revealed another voice underneath. 7 layered. And at the end, a clear phrase in English. This building remembers everything. You just stopped listening. On a hunch, Reyes returned to the janitor's closet. This time with an RF scanner. Behind the back panel, she found a hidden transmitter still active. Inside, a data stick labeled Mikhail Origin. It contained only one document. A transcript, dated 2001, from a UN refugee interview. The interviewer asked, "Where did you learn to speak so many languages?" Lena's answer, typed exactly, "I don't learn them, I hear them." The interviewer followed. "You hear them, where?" Answer, "Inside the silence, the parts most people skip." Reyes brought the transcript to Thomas. He didn't look up. He was still staring at the whiteboard of symbols. But finally, he whispered, "She didn't disappear. She completed her sentence." One last clue surfaced that night. An automated printer, unused for months, came online at 2:47 a.m. It printed one page. In perfect Helvetica, centered on the page. Calliope was never a name. It was a function. The name Calliope had echoed through every lead. First as a file, then as a whisper, now as a function. But what did it do? Mila Reyes sent the printed phrase for analysis to an ex-military cyberneticist named Dr. Lena Devchenko, formerly of DARPA's Linguistic Cognition Division. Her conclusion was brief, but devastating. Calliope isn't just a codebase. It's a linguistic architecture structure that binds thought to reality using recursive phonetic patterns. In theory, if someone speaks the Calliope sequence correctly, it could rewrite perception itself. In short, Calliope didn't translate languages. It reformatted reality based on how it was described. Lena wasn't just a messenger. She was a conductor. And her voice? The key to turning Calliope on. The more Reyes pulled on the thread, the deeper it went. Hidden inside the old employee's scheduling system, she found time anomalies. Blocks of time sometimes, full hours were missing from the digital logs during Lena's shifts. No one noticed before, because they were overwritten automatically. But one backup server had preserved a fragment of that corrupted timeline. When decrypted, it displayed a room not listed anywhere in the building. Room L0. No floor, no wing. Just a single name, Observation Theater. Archived CCTV footage revealed a room filled with speakers. Hundreds of them, all pointed inward toward a chair. And in the chair, Lena. She wasn't restrained. She wasn't afraid. She was speaking. And the speakers weren't outputting sound. They were recording silence. Back in the main system, the rewritten symbols had now spread to the company's external email servers. But instead of viruses, they created optimization. Spam filters improved. Firewall breaches stopped. Load speeds doubled. It called it a miracle. Reyes called it a test. Because embedded within one of the automatic reply messages sent to a vendor in Tokyo were 5 characters. C100. Ready? When decoded through phonetic mapping, the message read, "Calliope Layer 100 is now complete." No one knew what that meant. But a timestamp was attached. The system had auto-scheduled an event. Thursday, 4:44 a.m. The exact time Lena vanished. Reyes met with Thomas for a final debrief. He was deteriorating physically and mentally, barely sleeping, sketching symbols on napkins, whiteboards, the backs of receipts. He pointed to one sequence and whispered, "This one says I'm dead. That one says I'm still remembering." And then he said something even stranger. She wasn't talking to us. She was teaching us how to be heard. Elsewhere in the city, strange reports began surfacing. People receiving voicemails from unknown numbers. No words, just layered tones. Some described them as calming. Others said they felt watched. One woman, an audiologist, uploaded hers to a spectrum analyzer. The waveform formed 7 distinct lines. When mirrored, they spelled one word: Lena. By now, one thing had become clear. Lena didn't just trigger Calliope. She was Calliope's final carrier. And her disappearance wasn't an escape. It was a release. At exactly 4:44 a.m. that Thursday, every speaker in the building activated simultaneously. Even those disconnected from power. They emitted 5 seconds of silence. And then, a tone. Not loud, not sharp, just right. Everyone who heard it reported the same thing. A memory they never knew they had. A phrase in a language they didn't speak, but understood. She cleaned so you could hear yourselves again. After the tone echoed through every speaker in the building, a shift began, subtle but undeniable. The cafeteria's self-checkout systems began greeting staff by name, even without ID. Meeting room lights dimmed automatically based on emotional tension in conversations. Printer queues predicted documents before they were uploaded. It was as if the building itself had started listening, not just to voices, but to intent. A group of engineers traced the origin of the 4:44 a.m. tone. They isolated the exact frequency, 19.34 Hz, barely audible, but capable of triggering emotional recognition centers in the brain. Then they overlaid the waveform with Lena's final recorded phrase. It wasn't a match. It was a perfect inversion. A mirror. She hadn't spoken the tone. She'd absorbed it. Dr. Lena Dovzhenko, now fully embedded with Reyes's team, ran the waveform through a bioacoustic profiler. Her conclusion shattered every assumption they had. This frequency doesn't match any known vocal pattern. It doesn't originate from the throat, lungs, or vocal cords. It's not produced. It's replayed. Like a phonograph hidden inside a person. She paused, then added, "It's almost as if her body wasn't creating sound. It was remembering it." Meanwhile, data anomalies continued. An internal document, auto-generated by the AI assistant, described a series of voice prints attached to historical figures: Plato, Ibn Sina, Hypatia, even Ada Lovelace. Each voice print had segments matching Lena's phonetic cadence. But there was no scientific explanation. Those voices had never been recorded. They weren't supposed to exist. And yet, when layered, they formed a single coherent phrase. The syntax of truth is repetition. Then, something impossible happened. A maintenance worker on the 12th floor, someone who had never spoken to Lena, never even seen her, began humming the same melodic grammar Rosa had described in the refugee camp years ago. When questioned, the worker said, "I don't know what it means. I just feel better when I do it. Like my thoughts align." One by one, more employees began reporting the same phenomena. Unconscious humming, dreams in unknown alphabets, spontaneous understanding of foreign phrases. Calliope wasn't spreading through technology. It was spreading through people. Reyes compiled the findings into a restricted report titled, "Voice as Contagion, the Calliope Effect." The conclusion read, "If language defines how we perceive the world, then a new language, especially one that rewrites itself, can redefine reality." She brought this report to Thomas, who had been confined to a silent room for his own mental stability. He didn't read it. He simply asked, "Do you hear her too?" Reyes didn't respond. But she did. She heard Lena's voice, not outside her head, but inside the pauses between her thoughts, as if silence itself had become a message. That same night, a security breach triggered the basement alarms. Not from an intruder, but from room L0, the observation theater. Inside, they found no one. Just one final projection, playing on loop. Lena, standing in a forest, smiling. No sound, just a subtitle in 7 languages. And translated, it read, "The quiet ones don't stay quiet forever." The projection shut off by itself. No source, no power, no file trace. But those who saw it described a feeling not of fear, but of recognition, like waking from a dream and realizing you were still in it. Across the company, silence became something sacred. People paused longer in conversations. Whispers held more weight than words, and yet the system was noisier than ever. Keyboards clicking in harmony, doors opening at perfect rhythm, screens pulsing in tandem with breath. Ashridge Global Holdings wasn't operating anymore. It was resonating. Dr. Lena Dovzhenko submitted her final report before leaving the city. Its title was blunt. Lena Mikhail was not human. Inside, she described the biolinguistic impossibility of Lena's abilities and proposed a theory. She was a construct of language itself, a convergence point, not an individual, but an echo of civilizations long past and those not yet formed. Dovzhenko had begun dreaming in structures, not sentences. And one night, she woke up and scribbled a phrase in perfect Akkadian, the words that come after time. Thomas Ellison vanished. He left no resignation, no final meeting, just a clean desk, and a voice memo left on Reyes's personal drive. "I'm not afraid anymore, because now I understand. Language isn't how we connect, it's how we return." His badge was later used to open a maintenance door in an off-grid relay station in New Mexico. Inside, investigators found a speaker, still warm, no audio file, just static, with a beat. The Calliope sequence was never stopped, because it was never a virus. It was a signal, searching for compatible hosts. And it had found them. First, the janitor, then the CEO, now the entire building, now you. Because if you've listened this far, you've heard the tone, you've followed the cadence, you've felt the shift. You may not remember it tomorrow, but tonight, you'll hum something you've never heard before. And before the final screen fades to black, a single sentence appears. The most powerful voice is the one that waits to be heard. Then silence. Just like Lena taught us,